Welcome to Spotlight on the Arts. My name is Michael McKeever, and I will be your host today. Joining me is our usual expert panel, starting off with the always wonderful actress, director, producer, Miss Iris Acker. Next to her is noted South Florida theater critic, Mr. Bill Hirschman. And next to me is the award-winning actress and quite beautiful Miss Karen Stevens. We have a great show today. We're going to be talking about social media and its impact on the arts. We have a very special guest. I am delighted to welcome the Director of Public Relations for Zoetic Stage in Miami and a fine actor himself, Mr. Nick Richberg. Nick, welcome here.
Thank you for having me.
Let's get right into it. Really simple. For the 7 people who might be watching who don't know what social media is, give us a breakdown. What is social media?
Okay, back to basics. What is social media? You know, what is not social media? That's really the question these days. Everything. I mean, I would say even things that we used to consider formal forms of media, like newspapers. Newspapers at one time, you'd publish a review and it'd be out in the paper and nobody knew what anybody thought of it. Nowadays, it gets put online. You have a comment section afterwards. So everything is all about interacting. You know, there's the traditional things we think about. Facebook is the big one. Over 900 million users worldwide on Facebook. You have Twitter, obviously. You have LinkedIn, which is business-centered, has about 160 million users in 200 countries, so it's the largest business network in the world. Wow. And then you have the mobile networks. You have Instagram, and you have Snapchat. And then you have Tumblr, which young people love to use now.
I'm getting an education. I wasn't aware of all of those. I'm still in the dark ages.
Well,
or
you're
something.
on Facebook, right?
Well, Facebook, yes, but everybody. But I'm just saying, Instagram and all of those are fairly new. Or new to me.
So, well, let me ask you, how are theater companies, how are operas, how are the arts using these sources of media to promote and reach out to people?
It's really become an essential way of engaging audiences. I mean, it's hard to think of another way that one can as effectively engage with your audience for relatively little cost. I say relatively little cost, and the caveat to that is the one thing that most nonprofits struggle with is really manpower. Manpower for their social media effort, because it takes consistency, it takes time, and quite a bit of effort. So that's the one challenge facing nonprofits, but at the same time, it allows you to really engage your audience. It allows you to get feedback almost instantly about everything that they're seeing and everything that you're doing. So on many different levels, both monetarily and also in free kind of engagement, nonprofits and arts organizations are using it all over the place.
Well, for instance, why don't you take an example of a Zoetic show that you've done social media with and walk us through the process of what you've done in what order. Yeah. Well, they want to know all this. But how, what's the process? What do you do? What do you not do? What's involved in promoting a show? Pick a show.
Sure. You know, like Fear Apart.
Fear Apart show, yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Great show, great cast, that Fear Apart.
I have to interject and say, of course it was mentioned because Karen starred in the show and got a Carbonell Award for it as well.
For her amazing performance.
Which
and
I
good
had
reviews.
And so, okay, now they know. It shouldn't be an in thing. We have to share.
Oh, okay.
There you go. There you
and
are.
I'm so pleased to be able to share that.
Thank you.
So we'll use as an example, or any, it's the same for almost every show. The first thing I'll usually do is sit down with the artistic director and pick his brain about what the show is about. That's what his vision of the production is going to be. This is long before we even go into rehearsals. This is early on in the season, sometimes before the season even begins. So by getting his take on what it's going to be, that's how we sort of form the beginnings of the marketing campaign. That's how we begin to set a plan for how we're going to promote the show and engage with people. And then in the case of Fear Apart, one of the first things that we always do is we develop a video trailer for every production, which is usually shot either a few weeks before the production or right when rehearsals are starting. That video goes up on YouTube. It gets a lot of traction on Facebook, on Twitter, and that's actually really effective for us. Video is a very effective way of engaging people. Video and photos are a great way to engage people, so that's been really successful for us. Then first day of rehearsal, everybody comes in and they get a little social media primer from me about engagement and awareness and how important it is for us as a company to engage our audiences and the proper ways and the best practices to engage the audience. And it's great to pay for advertising, but we love organic engagement with the audience, and the easiest way for us to do that is through the cast, who is there every day in rehearsal and working on the show.
Let's talk about reviews.
Sure.
They can help it. Could they hurt?
In terms of social media, I mean, sure, reviews can always hurt, but there's always been the saying, everyone's a critic, right? The difference is that now everyone's a critic with a forum. And that can range everything from
Right.
well-curated blogs like yours that people go to as a destination, to random people making a tweet or a Facebook post about whether they liked a show or not. Sure. Sometimes that has more influence. If your friend writes
Sure.
on Facebook that they loved a show or hated a show,
Perfect.
a lot of times that will have more influence than what a reviewer who they don't know or maybe have never read before has to say
Word
about
of
a show.
mouth.
Word of
Word
mouth.
of mouth, I
Word
think.
of mouth.
Yeah.
And social media is a platform
That's what
for
it is.
everybody in the audience to potentially reach thousands of people in 140 characters. So it's very powerful.
Now you've talked to the cast and said, okay, we want to engage you. What do you
Right.
do after that?
Sure. Well, we set out a marketing plan for the show. So we have a budget for paid advertising, and we have a calendar of posts throughout. We have material and we have content that we develop with our graphic design department and our marketing team to develop content that we'll share, because we need things to post. We need things to share with people, and it usually starts out slow. So we'll leak a few photos, a little behind the scenes, and then we'll show a little bit more. We'll show the trailer, then we'll show official production photos, everything leading up to opening night. And then our focus moves on to the reviews, which hopefully are fantastic, which get a lot of traction. So we promote those things, and we promote word of mouth, and then we move on, and we monitor it very closely throughout the production. And that's the great thing about social media, as opposed to taking out a print ad, for example. On social media, you get instant feedback on what you're doing. So you know what's engaging people, what kind of, what's the word on the street, what's getting people excited about the show, and you do more of that and less of what's not.
Being an actor, there are times when you have to wear two hats.
Yes. Or three.
Yes. As an actor preparing for a role in production, like you had to do with Assassins and what was the second
Great Guy Pan.
Yes,
The Great
Great
Guy
Guy Pan. So how do you balance that?
In some ways it's harder, in some ways it's easier. When I'm doing a show with Zoetic Stage, it's easier in the sense that I'm there every day in rehearsal. So I'm, since I'm the guy behind the Twitter feed and the Instagram feed and all of that, I'm there, and I don't have to make special trips to, interview people or take video or take photos. And then of course the challenge is, the two sides of the brain working at once. The actor, the neurotic actor trying to prepare for a role, certain that this will be the worst thing he's ever done in his life, balanced with the guy who's out there saying it's going to be the best show ever made, So it has its challenges, but it's exciting.
Well, it would be challenging too, not to just like, hey, come look at me. Right?
That's a challenge to not make it seem like self-promotion, and it's tough. Somebody gave me very good advice not too long ago, and that was to just remember that the number of people who really know that I'm the person wearing both hats is very, very small.
Yeah.
Right.
We have 2,000 people that follow us on Facebook and more on
That's
Instagram,
all.
et cetera. Yeah, we're growing it over the last 18 months. During an average calendar year, we average 3 to 4 million impressions, which is exactly what it sounds like. It means that a person sees something related to Zoetic Stage. And during each individual production, it's roughly about 250 to 300,000. So we're slowly growing that. But yeah, back to that point. It's a fairly inside group that knows I do both things, and hopefully those people understand that I do the same things for myself as I do for other people. It's just a way to, if my picture sells tickets, then so be it.
Everybody's trying to get that young audience. I think this is the way to get the young audience. But do you lose from the other end?
Yeah. The short answer to that is no. And there's some interesting statistics that have come out very recently about Facebook specifically. Facebook, over the last 3 years, lost about 3 million teenage users. And the largest growth segment in Facebook was 55 and over.
Really?
And it had an 80% growth spurt over the last 3 years.
I'm surprised.
So there are 80% more people 55 and over using Facebook now than there were 3 years ago. And that's partially the reason why you've lost the 3 million teenagers, because they call it mom book now.
And getting an education.
Facebook is for old people.
Nobody really nobody wants their mom, liking a picture of them with their friends out on a Saturday night, So they've migrated to other things like Tumblr and Snapchat, Instagram.
Well, here I am. I know nothing about them.
Tumblr is it's a micro blogging platform where you get to curate your own sort of stream of consciousness feed. It's like a blog feed. So is Facebook. Anyway, it's another place where their moms aren't.
So Nick, so here's a question. Take an educated stab at this. Are the days of newspapers and magazines limited?
Yes.
I mean, have we really taken that step now where social media is where we get all our media?
Well, I don't want to insult anybody, who prints newspapers, but I mean, I think even people within that industry would admit that, even traditional forms of media, traditional media outlets depend heavily on their online presence. I would say even just moving from online presence, moving to mobile usage. I mean, people don't even sit behind the computer anymore, let alone pick up a newspaper. Recent statistic, half of all people read their email exclusively on their phones. So it's moved from reading a newspaper to sitting down and reading the newspaper online to now maybe reading a few sentences while you're running to somewhere and you're checking it on your phone.
But here's the thing that I don't completely understand, and as someone whose entire existence now is online, which is a change. I'm an old print dinosaur, so it's taken a lot of learning. But when you're using social media, are you, this is a rhetorical question, aren't you speaking to the converted, and that the trick is to let people know that you exist who aren't necessarily already part of the inner circle, as opposed to if you have a general circulation newspaper, I can't believe I'm saying this, but a general circulation newspaper, you're reaching people who aren't necessarily already looking for you.
Sure. Well, in a general newspaper, you're reaching people who read newspapers.
Right.
So it's all about demographics and who you're reaching. I mean, I guess it depends how you define the converted, I would say. I mean, I think there's a difference between somebody who may like you on Facebook and somebody who's going to buy a ticket to every show versus somebody who's going to donate to your organization. So there's many levels of commitment, I would say, to an organization. And liking something on Facebook or following somebody's Twitter feed is a very casual thing. I mean, you don't have to know a lot about an organization or care a lot about an organization in order to do that. So in many ways, it's the first stage, and it's how we develop a stronger relationship with people. Interesting, there was a Case Foundation study that said that 88% of nonprofits say that direct email and their website is still their primary form of engagement with people, which to me seems very high. But I think when you look at that, what's interesting is that 47% of those asked say that a donation is their pinnacle of engagement. I look at a donation as marriage. Right. And before you get married, you have to be engaged, and then you have to date, and then you have to flirt. So to me, the social media process is the flirtation process and the dating process, and then maybe the engagement is buying a few tickets to your shows, and then marriage is making a donation and realizing that.
But does it help? Is there a way to reach audiences that aren't even aware you exist?
Yes, absolutely.
I think that's where I'm going.
Okay. How would you do that?
How would you do that?
Good question.
Well, I'll use Facebook as an example. People use Facebook for free, And the thing that you give up in exchange for using Facebook for free is privacy. And that allows organizations and companies to know a lot about the people using Facebook. So we are actually able to target advertising on Facebook to people based on their age, their sex, their estimated annual income, their estimated net worth, their charitable giving patterns, their travel patterns, the music they like, the list goes on and on and on and on about how specific we can get in terms of demographics. And there might be, say we do a micro campaign about something small, a particular event, say, that might be expensive. Right. Right now, we're doing a campaign for an event that has a high ticket price, for example. We're willing to spend a lot on that advertising if it's targeted to the right people. So there's certain advertising that's targeted to people with high charitable giving patterns. So they may not know what zoetic stage is.
That's what I'm getting.
Right. It's not targeted necessarily people who know what zoetic stage is.
Right.
But they will see our post because we're paying to get it out to them based on other things we know about them that Facebook tells us.
Publicizing is not for profit. It's a tax thing for them too, isn't it? Or doesn't it matter?
For them, sure, it's
I'm
tax
just saying
deductible.
that's for that demographical.
Absolutely, and we can also target based on net worth and income and all of those things. So it's very targeted.
Does Zoetic still do print advertising?
We do some print advertising. Print advertising is expensive, and it just doesn't give you the same kind of feedback that you can get through social media. So I think there's room for everything, and there are still some audiences that only get their information a certain way. And but in our case, for our particular target audience, which is, I would say, is maybe skews a little bit younger than the average theater-going audience. Not young in the teens and 20s, but Facebook for us hits that sweet spot of that 25 to 55 demographic. So that's what we focus on. But definitely you have to know your audience and know who you're looking to target, and that's how you'll know what.
But you go to a Broward Stage Door in Coral Springs, which is a primarily older audience, senior audience primarily, and even older. And you sit down in the audience waiting for the show to start, and there's 2, 3, 4 dozen people out there with their cell phones out there answering text messages and they're showing their pictures to their seatmates.
Right.
So the concept, I think, particularly as the boomers get older, that social media is not an effective marketing tool, I think is a bogus argument.
Right. It's moving up to that demographic as well. Let's talk about Twitter.
Okay.
We've had this conversation before.
Yeah.
It makes me crazy to see people in a designated Twitter spot twittering about in a theater. And yet it seems that every new theater seems to have that section now, and it seems to be doing well. Am I just not getting something? Is it really, or is that something that's just going to be a passing phase?
You're talking about tweet seats, tweet sections, tweet ups, tweet events during productions. It's an individual thing for every organization. I think it's an individual thing depending on the production as well. I mean,
and the audience
you probably
base.
wouldn't have liked people, tweeting in a 200-seat theater during Fear Apart. So I think you have to be sensitive both to your actors and to your audience. I mean, it's a great marketing tool, but would you really want to be the person sitting next to the person tweeting?
Yeah, is it really necessary?
No,
please,
I mean,
no.
that's the question I would ask. Is it something that's absolutely necessary? Is it something that can be done at intermission?
Me personally, I'll just speak for myself. I think productions nowadays, are usually about 90 to 110 minutes. I think you can wait till after and encourage people in the lobby to tweet their fully formed thoughts about a production. I mean, I don't think you need to tweet. And now she's walking stage live. It's always interesting to me what exactly people are talking about.
I would like to see what I call cooperative marketing.
Yes.
That, do you know what I'm talking about? Theaters, promoting the other theaters. If you get everybody doing it, I mean, it just be something. I go to the movies, I see a film, and they have commercials. Before I resent that, but that's besides the point. I'm not talking about coming attractions. I mean, a dentist, and but promotions like that, they're stuck. They come early and they watch it. I don't know what I'm trying to say, except that would something like that work for theater? Do you have, or is the film audience not a theater audience?
Well, I think what you're getting at is cooperation, and what I will say.
That's number one.
Okay, and what I would say is, sure, social media is supposed to be social. So one of the best things that we can do as a community is to engage with each other. That's the best way to create organic excitement about everything that we're doing. You know, it's tough because once each individual company gets into the swing of their season, you want to promote your own projects, but you never want your social media platform to be just a megaphone for yourself. I mean, you really would like to become a thought leader and to engage with other organizations to really, you know, make it known in the community that there's a lot going on, because that's how you really create a good atmosphere.
I have to say it happens often in South Florida, the South Florida theater community, where a lot of theaters will go see other work and tout it on their Facebook pages and promote it and say they really enjoyed it. So I mean, so that's...
And Twitter is great for engaging with other organizations and other organizations in other places of the country. It's just because of the format, it's a very easy way to communicate with people who you don't come in contact with a lot. So yeah, cooperation and actually being social with your social media is it's important.
Your programs, advertising in your programs, getting the advertisers, and is that part of your job as well?
You know, advertising is something that we work on. You're talking about print advertising in programs and such. You know, for us, we work. You know, we perform at the Adrienne Arsht Center, so we work through them for all program advertising and. But sure, I mean, we do all kinds of fundraising and ways to. There are many ways to make money.
You have to, of course.
Yeah.
Sure. What do you see as the next wave? Is there some form of social media that you see on the horizon that's going to be the new Facebook, now that Facebook apparently is the old Facebook?
I mean, there are always new things coming out. I mean, it's hard to beat Facebook. Like I said, 900 million users worldwide. I mean, it's going to be tough to beat that. There are things that are new, like I mentioned, Snapchat. Which we got to get Iris on Snapchat.
Iris, it sounds painful, doesn't it?
What that is.
Yeah. So I mean, there's other new forms. So and as arts organizations, we're always looking at the new forms and seeing if it fits our model as to how best to expose our brand, and if our target demographic is interested in it, and if they're using it, and how we can best use it to our advantage. I mean, there are things on the horizon, but the big boys are still the big boys.
Go ahead.
No, go on.
No, please.
Does the type of show you're doing, does that depend on who you target with social media?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And like I was talking about how focused you can be. I mean, based on each individual show, you can target people who like a particular writer or like a TV show that might be like the play you're doing, or something so you could be very targeted in that way.
Is that why they ask you to fill out all those things on your profile so they can target you better?
No, it's more insidious than that. I mean, it's not just by what you volunteer; it's by what you do, and it's by what you like and who you talk to and the things you buy on other websites and all kinds of things. It's by signing up for Facebook Messenger, where they can now know everything you say.
I know.
It's out there, and like I said, it's the price we pay for. I mean, we use it for good. We're raising money for a good cause. I mean, there are people who use it, just for commerce. But I like to think we use it for good.
Before and after. I mean, have we discussed that yet? The difference from before all this?
Sure. I mean, it is quantifiable. You're talking about the difference in audiences.
Of course.
Sure.
Yes.
It is quantifiable. I mean, we certainly know if somebody clicks on an ad, goes to the ticket page, buys a ticket, how long they stay, how many tickets they buy, what they're going to name their firstborn child. I mean, we know quite a bit about that, so it is measurable. We do have a statistically significant portion of our audience that engages at a significant level through social media and buys tickets because of it. And I think I speak for all arts organizations when I say that, but I know for us specifically, we do notice that.
Well, we're running short on time, and there's something I have always wanted to do.
Let's do it.
This is something I have longed to do. Could you please take a Spotlight on the Arts selfie?
A selfie, yes.
Do you have your phone?
I will.
Take Iris and Bill, and we'll post it on Facebook. We'll
Okay. There we go.
I've always wanted to do this.
There we are. I will post that on Facebook, and I will tweet that.
What happened to?
Oh, you want to? Here, I'll do that.
do this
I'll do
too.
a double do.
I'll do that, and then I'll pick stitch it together. That's
You can
another
do
app.
that.
There you are. See?
And then I'll post that.
He's a pro.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so we've got just a couple of minutes left.
Sure.
Give us the world of social media and the arts, and why it's here to stay, and how it benefits, because God knows it really does benefit.
It does.
us.
You know, and the thing I would say for all arts organizations is just do it. You know, that's really the philosophy. You know, we marketing in the arts and nonprofits, we think a lot about, you know, how do we do this? How do we do that? Let's study it before. Let's figure out how to do it. What's the best practice? Just do it. I mean, you'll figure it out as you go along. It's not that complicated. Just get out there, get your voice out there, develop your voice as an organization, engage with your audience members. People are ready to engage with you. You know, they're out there, so just put it out there, engage with each other, and that's how we'll create.
You'll learn by doing.
You'll learn by doing, absolutely.
Right.
You'll absolutely, and you'll come in contact with other people out there in the interwebs that have already been doing it, and you'll learn that way, and it'll grow the whole community, and we can only all benefit from that.
Excellent, excellent. Nick, thank you so much. It's been a great show. You've been a great guest. I want to thank Iris, Bill, Karen. This has been a terrific show, and we loved having you with us. If you want to find out more about any of the theaters that we've spoken about today, check out floridatheateronstage.com.
Social media.
Yeah, or it's another form of social media. Who knew? Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next week right here on Spotlight on the Arts.